Good morning, ladies and gents. So I am back with another Conquerors Blade video, and as you can probably already tell, this is going to be a tier list for all the hero weapon classes in the game. Now, bear in mind this list is subjective, so you may think I am totally wrong, you may think I am totally right. Each of us has our own opinion, so please just bear that in mind while we're going through the list. I will give you reasons for the positioning of each of the weapon classes as I go through. So don't just skip to the end of the video and then wonder why a certain class is in a certain tier for then to just go and ask a question in the comments, because I will just tell you to go back and watch the video because I will explain all the reasoning there. So I am going to go through and I'm going to run through all the tiers, all the weapon classes in the game that the heroes have access to. Now, I'm going to be basing this on a few different factors. So one of the guys in my house, Spartacus, has actually done this very recently, and I pretty much agree with him, but there are a few things I would change, so that's what I'm going to be doing in this video. However, I'm going to be looking at things like hero versus hero, hero versus units, utility, horseback, capabilities, hero versus hero in deathmatch, but I'm also going to be looking at territory war use as well, because some weapons are a lot more useful in territory war than they are in sieges, and I'm going to kind of just bring it all together and then give an overall score and put them into what I believe is the correct tier for them. So also I just want to point out as well, because I've got the older images for the weapon classes, this here is the short sword that my mouse is over currently, and this here is the long sword, but I will be going over that again when I actually get around to actually putting these in the tiers. So any thoughts, please do leave below. Hit that sub button as well if you enjoyed this kind of video. I'm going to be making a lot more of these, and not just unit ones either. There's going to be quite a few different tiers, tier makers that I'm going to be actually bringing in. So definitely, if you are interested in this kind of thing, hit that sub button for all the latest and greatest for Conquerors Blade, and let's get straight into it, shall we? So starting off with the longsword. So the longsword is not a very well used or well played weapon. I don't see it that often anymore. However, the longsword does have some very good utility skills in terms of its heal for units. It does heal up units, and it obviously is one of the tanky classes, so that's quite useful in sieges and in battles. It's quite a useful class. The damage output is not great, however the utility of it does bring it up a little bit. However, that is in nowhere near a comparison to the other classes. So unfortunately, the longsword I'm going to have to put into C. I would not advocate playing any class underneath B until you've put a lot of time into this game. So longsword, definitely leave until you're like more versed, more well educated in the game, if you will, because it is going to take you a little while to really get into playing a longsword. So moving on to the glaive. So I am, full disclosure, a massive glaive player. I'm main glaive. I've played over prior 2,000 hours of glaive. I've played a lot of glaives. So hero versus hero is definitely up there. It's definitely one of the better weapons. If you know how to play the glaive and you've got your skills right, it is definitely one of the better hero versus hero weapons, both in sieges and in territory war. I do often score 5 to 10 kills in whatever battle I'm in, if not more, with this weapon. It's very, very useful. Hero versus units. Now this is dependent on actually your skills. So Arc of Steel will do a lot of damage in a massive AoE, causing a lot of damage to units. However, if you're not using that skill, then actually you've gone more down the utility route, which is buffing your units. Really, it all depends on your playstyle. It depends on what you want to do with the glaive, because actually it's very useful for both ways of playing it. If you want to just solely focus on actually doing as much damage as you can to units, you can play it like that. If you want to solely focus on doing more damage to heroes and being a massive useful utility buff to everyone around you, you can also play it that way as well. Just for that point alone, I am going to put glaive right up into S because of the versatility, because of the usability of the glaive, and it's actually quite an easy class to learn as well. The skills are very they tell you exactly, I know all the skills tell you exactly what they do, but with Glaive it's very, very simple. And actually, if you master the Glaive, you will come out on top against pretty much anything. The only classes which may give you a little bit of bother are dual blades and spears. They're the only ones that seem to have a bit of a win over the Glaive. Also with the Glaive as well, so you have the horseback capability. No matter how you build your Glaive, you will have an AoE attack on the Glaive, plus a jump down attack as well. Very, very useful. Very, very useful weapon to have in a team. So moving on to the dual blades. Dual blades, hero versus hero, bang up there. Definitely like one of the top classes for hero versus hero, both in sieges, in territory war, and in death matches. In territory war as well, very, very useful class to actually get around the back of an enemy, take over supply points around the back of someone, and kind of cause a little bit of chaos in the enemy lines. Very, very useful class. However, hero versus units, if you go up against a stack of even Conquerors alone as a dual blade, you are not going to win that battle. Dual blade is all about doing that real good damage to heroes and actually being very useful in territory wars to move around and actually cause a lot of chaos. Other than that, I wouldn't really say dual blade has anything over any other classes. If you learn how to play dual blade very well, you can literally take out whatever hero you want that is in your path. However, other than that, not really much use for the dual blades, but just solely based on the fact that they can pretty much kill anything if you learn to master the skill. I am going to put it in A. I think dual blades are a very great weapon, and I think they, when they're played by a master, they are devastating. So moving on to longbow. Longbows are one of those weapons that you never ever see. Now I know they've had massive buffs in the past, they've had massive nerfs in the past. I've not really kept up with it. The range classes I've never really played. I've put a couple of hours into both, but I've never really played them that well to really master them. But I'm just going off of actually how useful they are and when I do see them. Against heroes, they're quite a harassing hero class, which goddamn really annoying. However, don't seem to put out a lot of damage. I don't think I've ever really been killed by a longbow. Against units as well, they are definitely down in the lower tiers because they can only hit one thing at a time. I know they've got a couple of skills that can hit multiple things, but they're not a great class. Utility wise, don't really have anything that's going to help buff your team or anything. And then obviously when you're on horseback, if you learn how to archer or bow when you're on the horse, it's quite useful, but I wouldn't suggest playing the longbow. So for this moment in time, longbow is going to go into D. Now I know I've put poor weapon, however it's just a weapon that I think is very shadowed by everything else. I think that every other class is a lot better than it. Just because I've put it in the poor weapon category does not mean that it's a really bad weapon. It just means that actually it seems to lack on a lot of other stuff which the other weapons provide you. If you are a longbow player, let me know down below if I've totally got that wrong, but I'm going off of what I've seen in the past couple of years, and longbow has never really, I believe, found its full potential. Hopefully it does, but at the minute I don't think it still has. Now moving on to everyone's favourite weapon, the maul. What a goddamn annoying weapon this is. So mauls are very, very good. If you learn to play the maul, they are very useful. They are very good at taking out heroes, they're very good at taking out units. They are one of those classes that can do massive damage to both heroes and to units as well. They are very useful in territory wars, they're very useful in sieges. They are really, really good at actually helping break down shields, getting somewhere where it's being like bottlenecked or blocked off by certain units. Mauls are very, very good units. They can also kidnap, which I'm sure all of us have been, a enemy hero, launch him off the wall or chuck him into a big pile of units and get him killed that way as well. So mauls are very good, they're very useful, and again they're not the most difficult class to play either, so they're quite useful in actually learning and having a decent maul just if you ever need to switch to it. So just based purely on the fact that they are very good against heroes and very good against units as well, they're going up into the S, because I think actually if you're going to spend time, especially early days when you're learning a weapon class, Glaive or Maul at this moment are going to be your best bets. There may be more yet to come. So moving on to the Musket. The Musket is probably what I feel is a very overhyped class. I believe people that play the Musket overhype it a lot, and I have never seen its full potential. I've been told that it's the best damage dealing class in game. I've been told that it can tear through units and heroes alike. I have never ever witnessed it. I specifically target more Musket players on sieges because I know they are not going to be able to kill me, and not once have they ever killed me. They are a very, I think, overhyped class. Now I can see that there is potential in some of the skills they have, like caltrops and stuff like that, but other than that I don't think they're a very good class at all, especially when people in the past have told me that main Musket, that to play Musket effectively you need to be in close range. Why? It boggles my mind. I've said this on streams a few times now when people have been on. It boggles my mind why you would play a range class in close range. Why would you not just play a melee class? It makes no sense to me whatsoever. Just the fact that, however, they do and they can put out a little bit of damage against units. They can hurt, but I don't think really they never really take the lead in killing a hero. I am going to put the Musket down in the B category just because I think if you do learn how to play Musket, it's very useful. However, please don't be like the people I've already spoken to and overhype it. Musket is, I personally don't think, the greatest class that people make it out to be fair. It's got its place, it does have its uses, but other than that, I would leave it there. So Nadachi. Nadachi is not great against heroes. Hero on hero, Nadachi will 9 times out of 10 always be the losing class, but against units, Nadachi, it comes into its own because that's where it gets its lifesteal from. It relies on the fact that actually it's got a lot of people it can take life from, and when you're using a lot of the AoE abilities or the attack abilities within Nadachi combined with the lifesteal, you can go from literally 10% health up to 100% health in a matter of seconds. Nadachi is a very, very good class. However, other than being very good against units, it doesn't really have much else going for it. It doesn't have any utility skills, it doesn't have any buffs for your team or anything like that. Horseback as well, it doesn't really, nothing really changes on it either. And in death matches and in territory wars and in duels, the other class is usually always going to come out on top over the Nadachi. Nadachi as well seems to be one of the more difficult and complex classes to learn and to learn effectively. So just for that fact, it's going to join the Longbow into the D. Again, poor weapon just means a weapon to avoid in the early days. Once you're into the game, so like level 800 plus or so, and you've got a fair bit of time in the game that you actually understand it, that's when you should be exploring these other classes, I would say. For the rest of the time, stick to B and above to get the most out of your gameplay. Now moving on to Spear. Spear is a pain in my butt. Spear is one of the only classes that I am very wary of. I would say I'm probably 50-50 on kill to deaths of Spears. A very good Spear player will tear through you, but a very good Spear player will only be able to tear through one of you at a time, so that's just something to be very mindful of. However, against units, Spears do suffer. They don't have a great attack on units, they don't have a great AoE kind of thing. I know they have AoE skills, but it doesn't really seem to do much to units. They again don't really have much utility, they can't buff your team or anything like that. However, they really come into their own on horseback. On horseback, they're very good with their charge ability, where they use their spear as like a lance. It tears through people, really does hurt people badly. So for Spear, I'm going to put it into the A category just because other than hero versus hero in territory wars, it has no other use, whereas the Glaive can obviously buff people around him. The maul can chuck people off walls, and anything else that I'm going to put in there has certain other skills as well, which actually really benefits the team. Spear is a very Rambo kind of class. Very, very good. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying it's bad in any way. It just doesn't really help your team massively, so that's why it gets the A. Still a great weapon, still definitely worth the time in learning. I'm actually currently learning to play it at the minute. I'm very much enjoying it. It's doing a lot more damage than I thought it would. But I think even after I've learned it and spent a good time with it, I don't think I'm going to be changing that tier, just solely based on the fact there are other classes in the game which benefit you a lot more in territory wars. So Poleaxe. Poleaxe is a class which used to be very well loved. Used to see a lot of Poleaxes all the time. Nowadays, don't really ever see them that much. They are starting to pick up a little bit of popularity again. In the last couple of weeks, I've noticed a few more Poleaxes about. Now, Poleaxes are very good. I would say they're probably better at taking out multiple units rather than heroes. Heroes, I know they've got their like CC ultimates, but it doesn't really seem to do a lot of damage, or it never seems to on me. And I don't build an armor class on my glaive. It doesn't seem to do a lot of damage. It does take me out of the fight for a couple of seconds, which is a pain in the ass, but it does about probably a third of my health as an ulti, which isn't great. Units, it does have a lot of AoE attacks, can do a lot of damage very quickly. Utility wise, doesn't really have anything that can kind of buff the team or anything like that. Horseback, nothing really changes with the Poleaxe either on the horseback. Territory war, you never ever see Poleaxe. You never see Poleaxe at all. I think it's quite a Marmite class actually. You either love it or you hate it, and Poleaxe, I don't think a lot of people have even played it to make that decision, because there's not a lot of call for it, there's not a lot of need for Poleaxe. So that is why I'm actually going to put it into the OK category, the C category, purely based on the fact that the amount of damage it can do to units and the fact that it can stun enemy heroes. I'm very torn between putting it between C and D. If I had a middle category, it would go in there, but I think it's just going to edge into C, because I think it has a little bit more going for it than it does Nadachi and Longbow. Now the shortbow. The shortbow is again a harasser class. It, I feel, does a lot more damage than a longbow to me, and it has, I believe, a few more skills which are useful for it to take out units. Utility wise, doesn't give you anything, doesn't give you any buffs or anything. However, it does harass classes, it does harass other enemy heroes, which is quite annoying if they're on, say, like a piece of artillery. I know the longbow can do the same, but shortbows, it's just a pain in the frickin' ass. Very, very useful class. I see a lot of people playing shortbow and a lot of people talking about shortbow. Just purely based on the fact that a lot of people play it. Again, though, you don't really ever see it in territory war. There's never any call for it or any need for it as such, other than to try and keep people away from artillery. I'm going to put it into the B class because I think it does have potential. It does have its place in sieges and in death matches, but in territory war, I don't think it's quite found, like the longbow, quite found its potential yet, unfortunately. That may change in time. So last but not least, the short sword. The short sword has been, again, I think, like the musket class, very overhyped to what its potentials are. Now, I think it is a very good class. I think it's a very useful class. Things like Ironsides and stuff does give you a bit more survivability as a tank, which is how you will only be playing this class. So there's not really any damage outburst at all. I can take down short swords even with their iron sides up in like 5 or 6 hits. They don't really do any damage to me as much. Units they struggle against, I would say. I would say that they haven't got a lot of damage capability to actually put out against units. Utility wise, however, because of just the fact they're a tank, they are very useful for your team, because they can get in, they can soak up that damage, and they can allow people to get into positions like the flanks or rear and actually launch an attack so your team can actually win in a siege or a territory war or whatever battle you're in. Horseback capabilities I don't believe they really have anything else, but in territory wars I think is where they shine. Now, there is a bit of debate going on at the minute whether you should 15 stack short swords or if you should have a more varied team composition, and the evidence so far suggests a more varied team composition is always going to outperform 15 short swords. However, short swords are very good, short swords are very useful. Short swords, having more short swords than less in territory wars, I can tell you from a shot caller's point of view and a war planner point of view, it's always better to have a few more short swords than it's to have a few less. So they're very, very useful class, they're very good class, and if you're looking at learning one of the tank classes, definitely pick up short swords. So for that fact, short swords going to go into the S tier, and I think if you spend the time learning short sword, they are a very good, useful class. I've only ever been beaten by one short sword in my life, and that is Mr. Beergut, if anybody knows him. He was a very good short sword player because that is all he ever really used to play. He absolutely learnt and mastered that class, and it showed as well. That goes for all of these classes though, so this is like the conclusion of this all. Again, remember, this is very subjective. This is my personal opinion of the classes as the game stands currently. I have got over 2 years playing this game. I've got many hours playing this game as well, so I'm pretty sure I know what I'm on about right now. But if you totally disagree with me in any of these tiers, leave me a comment down below. Keep it chill, keep it constructive though, because I'd rather have a proper discussion than people just moaning about it with no actual reason. If you really don't think I've put something in the correct place, do let me know, but give me the reasons why. Alright, thank you very much for watching though folks. I hope you enjoyed this one. If you have, hit that like button, hit that sub button, share this around, and as always I hope to catch you out on the battlefield.